Maine, we are requesting all citizens to move into Washington, to go by plane, by car, bus, any way that you can get there. Walk if necessary. We are pushing for jobs, housing, desegregated schools. This is an urgent request. Please join.
On August 28, 1963, 250,000 people gathered in the nation's capital for the historic March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. The march rallied Americans to stand up against the continuing political and social injustices African Americans still faced 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. The march took place at a critical moment in the civil rights movement. Tension and racial unrest had been building up throughout the year, when anti-segregation demonstrators making headlines in Alabama and President John F. Kennedy announcing his intention to pass civil rights legislation, the timing was right for a massive demonstration. Due to security concerns, internal marshals were trained to ensure order within the crowd, but as it turned out, the marchers chose peace, not violence. The event featured speeches from prominent leaders and musical performances by Josephine Baker, Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Mahalia Jackson, and many others. The march is probably best remembered for Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech.
I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia on January 15, 1929. Faith was a big part of his life. Both his father and grandfather were Baptist ministers. He thrived in a segregated high school and graduated at 15. While earning his graduate degree at Boston University, he met Coretta Scott, who he would marry and have 4 children with. Martin Luther King was a great man and was the most widely known African American leader of his era. Also at the march, many performances were very memorable.
We went on over to the march site. There weren't many people there when we got there. I remember just saying, I hope they come, I hope they come.
We got up at the crack of dawn and I made the banners for the buses. You're a teenager and all of these people around you are inspired and inspiring you to do all of this.
People kept coming and coming and coming, and we knew from the moment the crowds began to arrive that we had a success.
Something really special was happening.
The long-awaited march for jobs and freedom on Washington, D.C. has started, and it started early without its scheduled leader. About 10 minutes ago, the march began, broke out.
I'll tell you, when I began to really feel good was when Joan Baez sang, "We Shall Overcome." You just felt, this is it. This is okay. This is done it. And you could feel everybody going, yes.
was in some ways my best contribution to the civil rights movement, was making what I call salt and pepper audiences. People come to me years and years later saying they were standing next to somebody from the school and holding hands singing "We Shall Overcome." Those stories are so moving to me.
Last August, the U.S. celebrated the 50th anniversary for the march.
Thousands of people gathered in the nation's capital today to mark the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, and one of the most important speeches in American history. There was no official count of the size of the crowd, but it stretched from the Lincoln Memorial down the length of the mall's reflecting pool and beyond. As Jeff Pegues reports, the day was filled with speeches about race in America and one man's dream.
Today, the National Mall looked a lot like it did 50 years ago, as a new generation joined civil rights icons.
5 decades ago today, Americans came to this honored place to lay claim to a promise made at our founding. So they came by the thousands from every corner of our country. Men and women, young and old, blacks who long for freedom and whites who can no longer accept freedom for themselves while witnessing the subjugation of others.
Thank you for listening.